The following program is classified G. It's suitable for all ages.
Tonight, to move forward as a nation and to be compatible with the rest of the world, the imports and exports are critical to stabilize the economy. However, the pandemic has taken a drastic toll on developing countries like us, and in order to reserve foreign reservations, Sri Lanka has resorted to limiting imports. Is this an effective solution that our government has taken in order to sustain the economy? Good evening, I'm Suzanne Shanali. Tonight, Derana and the Morning Investigates. The government's decision to impose a 100% letter of credit cash margin on over 600 import items is still a major topic of discussion, as it curtails the importance of a large number of goods used by common folk for the regular importer. However, despite the reality of the negative impacts of these regulations on the people of the country, the government maintains that the country's waning ability to continue to import goods as it had done before is a bigger issue. This is not a new development. Following the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government decided to impose restrictions on the importation of vehicles and tires and turmeric, among other things. And the negative impact of these restrictions, even though they help the country as far as foreign reserves are concerned, has led to the decline of several local industries that had been engaged in the importation, distribution and the sale of these products. Although the many parties who lamented these new regulations were vocal about the fact that this list included undergarments, mobile phones and televisions, according to economists, these new regulations could pose a much larger issue affecting the overall economy as well as the export sector the country is trying to revive. When questioned about the true nature of the new restrictions, Trade Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena stressed that no ban has been imposed on imports and no special permit is required to import these goods. He further noted that there is no increase in the tax percentage applicable to these goods. According to him, the opposition is exaggerating the measures taken by the government.
Sri Lanka Mahabanku විසින් ණය මුදල් ගලා යන දිශාව පාලනය කිරීම සඳහා ගත්ත ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක් විපක්ෂයේ විසින් හුදු නොදැනුවත්කම තුල මේ සමාජ මාධ්‍ය හරහා විශාල මතවාදයක් ගෙනියනවා ආනයන තානම් කිරීමක් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ විශේෂයෙන් රෙදිපිලි ඇඟලුම් සෙලියුලර් ෆෝන් යනාදී තානම් කරලා තියෙනවා කියලා. මේක සම්පූර්ණ සාවද්‍ය මතවාදයක්. මේ කරලා තියෙන්නේ භාණ්ඩ වර්ග 600 ගණනකට ඩ්‍රයිවර් ලිපි නිකුත් කිරීමේ ක්‍රියාවලියේදී කාසියාන්තිකයේ 100% ලෙස නියම කිරීම. රටක සමස්ත මුදල් ක්‍රමය, ණය ක්‍රමය, බැංකු ක්‍රමය හැසිරවීම සඳහා සම්පූර්ණ පුළුල් බලතල තියෙන ආයතනය තමයි ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහ බැංකුව. 1949 මූල්‍ය නීති පනත අනුව ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහ බැංකුවට ණය ක්‍රමය පාලනය කිරීම සඳහා මහා බැංකුව ණය පාලන උපකරණ පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඒ ණය පාලන උපකරණ ප්‍රධාන කොටස් දෙකකට බෙදෙනවා. ප්‍රමාණාත්මක ණය පාලන උපකරණ සහ වර්ණාත්මක ණය පාලන උපකරණ කියලා. දැන් අපි යම්කිසි රටකින් භාණ්ඩයක් ආනයනය කරන විට මෙහාට ගෙන්නන විට ලංකා බැංකුව, මහජන බැංකුව හෝ වෙනත් බැංකුවකින් ණයවර ලිපියක් නිකුත් කරන්න ඕනේ. ණයවර ලිපිය මම ආයාත කරුණා ණයවර ලිපිය නිකුත් කරන අවස්ථාවේදී රුපියල් ලක්ෂ 100ක භාණ්ඩ ඇමරිකාවෙන් ආනයනය කරනවා නම් අපි ලංකාවේ බැංකුව ඇමරිකාවේ බැංකුවට ණයවර ලිපියක් නිකුත් කරනවා ඒ ලක්ෂ 100ට. ඒ වෙලාවේදී මම තැන්පත් කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ මොන මුදලම. 125ක් තැන්පත් කරලා ණයවර ලිපිය නිකුත් කරනවා. එතකොට 75ක් අපි සල්ලි හිර කරන්නේ නැහැ. මේ බැංකුවෙන් ණයවර ලිපිය ඇමරිකාවට ගියාම ඇමරිකාව ඒ භාණ්ඩ ටික සකස් කළා එහෙන් නැවට පටවනවා. පැටවුවාම නව බාරපත ඉන්වොයිසිය රක්ෂණ සාතිකය වැනි ලියවිලි ඇමරිකාවේ බැංකුව විසින් ලංකාවේ බැංකුවට එවනවා. දවස් 20ක් 30ක් නැව් වෙන්න කාලය ගත වෙනවා. ඒන කාලය තුල නැව ලංකාවට එනකොට ඒ ලියවිලි ටික නිදහස් කර ගැනීම සඳහා ආනයනකරු විසින් අපි විසින් ඊටු 175 බැංකුවට බඳින්න ඕනේ අර ලියවිලි නිදහස් කරගන්න. මේ ක්‍රියාවලිය වෙනුවට ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහා බැංකුවේ මුදල් මණ්ඩලය ඒ ආනයන අංශයට ණය මුදල් ගලා යාම සීමා කිරීමේ අදහසින් 100% තැන්පත් අනුපාතය නියම කළා. ඒ අනුව දැන් මේ ඕනෑම භාණ්ඩයක් චීස් හරි බටර් හරි සෙලියුල හරි වෙන ඕනෑම දෙයක් ඒ තිබුණ බදු යටතේම ආනයනය කරන්න පුළුවන්. ආනයන සමාගම තමන් ආනයනය කරන්නේ ලක්ෂ 100ක භාණ්ඩ නම් ලක්ෂ 100 තැන්පත් කරලා ණයවර ලිපිය නිකුත් කරගන්න ඕන.
Moreover, he claimed that this measure is intended to discourage the importation of non-essential goods, thus controlling foreign currency outflow. Dr. Gunawardena added that the government's intention is not to control imports in general. Dr. Gunawardena alleged that the prevailing foreign currency outflow is the result of 3 actions by the former United National Front-led government, namely, importing even the simplest of goods in the larger quantities, obtaining unbearable loans amounting to $13 billion, and disrupting the tourism industry following the Easter Sunday terror attacks. He noted that in this context, Sri Lanka has to manage its foreign reserves very carefully in order to continue to obtain essential goods it does not produce and ingredients for certain goods the country manufactures. However, economist and Samagi Janabalavagiya MP Dr. Harsha De Silva is of the opinion that import restrictions are not something that a government must impose on its people under normal circumstances, and that having to do so means that the country is in absolute distress. He added that in the face of large debt repayments the country has to make, the government has taken a decision to manage with the foreign reserves it has, prioritizing debt repayments. Expressing displeasure about the economic policies of the present government, Dr. De Silva noted that due to the actions of the present government, the country would go back to the pre-1977 era and that quantitative restrictions would come into effect, after which the people would be told how much of what we can be consumed. In addition, he said that in a context where school children's education has been disrupted, imposing import restrictions on mobile phones, which are being used for online education activities, would further negatively affect children's education. Furthermore, he noted that all sorts of imports have been negatively affected, with some imports being completely banned, some being severely restricted, some being given quotas, and some seeing the imposition of high tariffs. He expressed concern that the reason why Sri Lanka cannot seek the support of international markets is because the country has been downgraded by international rating agencies. To discuss the present economic situation with a focus on the newly imposed import restrictions, we spoke to several economic experts who underscored that considering the state of the overall economy and foreign reserves, these import restrictions would help to reduce the pandemic's negative impact on the economy for the time being, even though it is not recommended as a long-term measure.
The import restrictions recently announced by the government has been put in place to address, to basically with the objective of curtailing the outflow of foreign exchange or reducing the demand for foreign exchange, because at the moment the country is facing foreign currency problems, not securing sufficient foreign currency or foreign exchange to make the necessary payments that the country has to pay in foreign currency.
Verite Research Director Researcher Subhashini Abesinghe stated that there are several factors that need to be taken into consideration when discussing import restrictions. Example, the importance of the imports on which restrictions have been imposed to the domestic market, the importance of these imports to the lives of the people, the availability of already imported stocks in the domestic market, and how long the people of the government expect to keep these import restrictions in place. She noted that general measures of this nature, introduced to address foreign currency issues, are expected to be temporary, and that once the government is able to employ other measures to build back the foreign reserves and secure sufficient foreign currency, these restrictions should be lifted.
So, I'll take one scenario to explain. If this product, the import supply is a very important part in the domestic market, and if there aren't the already imported stocks are not sufficient, the expectation is there will be a shortage in the market when compared with the demand in the market, and there will be an increase in the price. And imagine a situation where there is actually sufficient stocks of this product available in the market to meet, let's say, 3 months of demand or 4 months of demand. Then what is really important is to understand, do consumers have this information, and how much do consumers trust this information? Because if the consumers do not have reliable information of available stocks, and if people don't trust the available information, what happens is it creates a panic in the market. Especially if the consumers consider this product to be important, what this panic will create is it will increase the demand above normal levels. People expect that there will be a shortage in the future. They will not be able to buy this product in the future. Even if they can buy, the price will be very high. So they feel, why don't I purchase this now? So as a result, you will see that the demand might increase above the normal levels, creating a shortage much faster than the expected time period. Then third is, this situation can also be impacted by people's perception of how soon can the government relax these imports. If there is quite a lot of uncertainty around that also can create the panic. Even if somebody says, oh, we have enough stocks for 3 months, if people do not have uncertainty about whether the restrictions will last beyond 3 months, it can also create this demand and lead to a shortage and eventually an increase in price.
The pros and cons have been outweighed by the necessity of limiting the imported goods. After the break, we will investigate on how this action would affect the economy and the community. Welcome back. Will the limitation of imports be beneficial to our developing nation? To find out, here's the rest of our investigation. The country is yet to see the impacts of the newly imposed import restrictions. However, economists predict that it will negatively affect a multitude of industries in various ways. Speaking of the detrimental impact on the overall economy and the public, Advocata Institute Chief Operating Officer Dhananath Fernandez said that the current import restrictions will negatively affect the economy on multiple fronts, ranging from small industries to matter of national importance, such as debt servicing and even exports.
First, we have to understand the context. Sri Lanka is going through a balance of payment crisis. That means we don't have enough dollars for our imports as well as for our debt servicing, and also for the demand of some of the other local consumption. For an example, for students who are studying abroad, some of the parents are sending dollars from here for their studies overseas. So there's a bigger dollar demand and we don't have enough dollar income to balance this off. So that's the context. So under this context, what would be the impact of import controls? So definitely the import controls have impact on multiple fronts. One is on the overall economy. The import controls have been imposed by the government as per their news sources because of the prevailing dollar shortage. So it will have an effect on the overall macroeconomy. Second, there will be an impact on the producer's side and on the business community, because some of these restricted imports are directly affecting their business operation.
Expressing similar sentiments, Dr. De Silva said that every tax on import is a tax on exports. Further, he noted,
You see, every tax on import in a country like Sri Lanka is a tax on export. That is because many things as intermediate products and machinery and equipment that is necessary to produce for exports. If you look at the apparel industry, without which we would have been sunk by now, also imports a fair amount of capital goods, that is machines, equipment, etc. Plus a large amount of intermediate goods, particularly textiles, that is necessary to produce that high quality, globally competitive product and brand that has global value and demand. So if you take in this example, try to increase the cost of that imported product, imported intermediate good, imported machinery, obviously the exporter is going to have to pay more and become less competitive in the marketplace. So that itself gives you an idea why imports, taxes on imports become a tax on exports.
According to Fernando, the impacts of import restrictions go beyond economic and monetary aspects and can directly negatively affect the quality of goods in the domestic market too. He emphasized that import restrictions could cause a broader negative impact on the overall economy because imported products ensure the competitiveness of locally manufactured products and services. He noted that the manufacture of goods becomes locally competitive and more so when global standards are involved and products have to compete with imported goods. Moreover, he added that when imports are reduced, competition too reduces, noting that removing competition within the local market is an injustice the country is doing to itself.
And that has been proved if you look at our trade data and the global competitiveness index. Sri Lanka has been ranked at the 84th rank overall in the world. So we are not a very competitive nation when it comes to international trade. And that has been again proved with the statistics. If you look at from 1990, our imports and our exports both have been declining as a percentage of the GDP. And it is obvious when you cut down imports, that means it is definitely going to bring your exports down as well. Because to produce things productively and at a lower cost, you need lower cost inputs. So that some of them you have to import, some of them you can produce locally, but even if you produce it locally, you should be able to produce it or we should be able to produce it at the globally competitive rate.
Fernando opined that even though the import restrictions could help the country curtail foreign currency outflow, it has to be understood that there is no country that has achieved great development just by imposing import restrictions, because cutting down imports also means cutting down competition. In a context where every item is important to the people and local industries in some way, Fernando said that it is not fair to categorize goods as essential and non-essential when taking decisions, including those affecting imports. The advantages and disadvantages of import restrictions highlighted by economic experts raise a question as to whether import restrictions are the best available solution. As a measure to deal with the situation, Dr. Gunawardana proposed that steps be taken to make the country's health situation as safe as possible in order to resume activities that help generate foreign currency. Moreover, he mentioned that attracting further foreign direct investments could help control the economic situation. In addition, he noted the importance of the Tax Amnesty Act, stating that it would help attract money generated by Sri Lankans, including those living abroad. When queried on the need for better solutions to deal with the declining economy, the economists emphasized the need to pay more attention to adopting more long-term, sustainable solutions as opposed to short-term restrictions. They stressed that under any circumstance, import restrictions are not a solution to the real economic issues Sri Lanka is dealing with, and that is merely a mechanism that allows the government to curtail foreign currency outflow for a short period. In this regard, Abe Singh said that Sri Lanka needs to have a proper plan in place in order to ensure that the country builds back its foreign reserves, improves its ability to earn foreign currency, and enhances exports and investments in the long run so that a similar situation is not faced in the future.
What is really important to understand at this point is import restrictions alone, without having strong, robust complementary measures to address the problem, is not going to be helpful at all. In any circumstances, import restrictions is not a solution to the problem we are facing. It is a mechanism that allows government to curtail or reduce the foreign currency, forex outflow for a short period. But no one should see it as a solution to the problem. While the problem is being solved, this provides some breathing space.
Expressing similar concerns, Fernando also noted that since import restrictions are not sustainable solutions, the ideal way to look at the prevailing economic situation is to adopt long-term, sustainable economic reforms aimed at making Sri Lanka's economy competitive by enhancing the ease of doing business. Is it true that a government has to make difficult decisions when dealing with a national-level crisis that has impacted almost all aspects of the people's lives? However, every decision has its advantages and disadvantages, and this decision too has disadvantages which one cannot ignore, according to economic experts. Further, imposing import restrictions is a temporary solution, and it is a measure taken to buy the country more time to deal with its declining foreign reserves and disrupted dollar-generating industries. Therefore, it is extremely important that the government takes this into account and use this borrowed time to make every real change to strengthen the economic structure. Thank you for taking the time to join us on Investigates. We'll return next week with another matter that affects you and me. Till then, see you soon.